All right, good morning. My contemplation this morning is on boosting Nigerian export innovative funding strategy. Boosting Nigerian export innovative funding strategy. There's urgent need to grow export volume to be able to stabilize Naira, even increase the value of Naira vis-a-vis other currencies of the world. One thing we are not doing very well, which I think CBN with the bank, with Nexim need to do well, is funding. It's important to state the fact that the major exporter in Nigeria are not growing their export volume because they are not doing a lot of new investment. So the implication of that is that we need new money coming in. We need new businesses coming in, and these businesses need to be supported. So there must be a deliberate policy on the part of the government to grow non-oil export by supporting, providing funding to businesses that want to go into export, that are already in export, particularly the small ones. You know, there are small businesses. When I say small, I mean they are not doing up to $1 million, probably a few $100,000. And even though they are doing $300,000, they have potential to do much more, but they are unable to get the funding required. And I won't blame the bank. We have mastered import for many years, so we've not mastered export well enough. Only few banks are really doing well in this space, but those few banks also have done a lot to learn to be able to know how to do it well right now. So you see, if you check the list of top bank, you just see a few banks every time. I don't want to mention any bank here, but where I'm going is the fact that we need to increase funding for export, and we need to be very creative about this. Number one strategy I want to mention this morning is low interest loan, like single digit, which Nexim is doing. The only challenge I have with some of the things that Nexim does, which I won't blame them for, but rather blame CBN for, is the fact that a number of the funding they do, they actually ask, their requirement is pretty much similar to what you will get from commercial bank. The only incentive is the fact that the interest rate is low. Now that means someone that will not be able to get from commercial bank will not be able to get from Nexim Bank. Why? Because the requirement is pretty much the same. It's extremely important to be more creative in the way we fund non-oil exports. You know, when I do training for bank, I ask this question. I'm new to export, but I have a buyer maybe in the UK, a stable economy, or Germany, or US, that is willing to buy from me and is going to give me a trade finance instrument like standby, like letter of credit or guarantee. What I'm selling is a manufactured good that I can procure from Dangote or Dufi or big multinationals in Nigeria. I've secured the market. I have the contract. They're giving me an LC. The transaction worth $1 million. I have $300,000. I need $700,000 from you. The question I'm asking is, why are you asking me for collateral? Why are you asking me for collateral? If you understand that transaction dynamic well enough, you shouldn't be asking me for collateral. Your risk is near zero if you understand how to structure that financing well enough. Your risk is near zero if you understand how to structure that financing well enough. Because two major risks in trade financing: performance risk, payment risk. Performance risk, payment risk. Performance risk, I'm dealing with a major producer that if I pay them today, they can deliver tomorrow because they have massive volume, or within a week. And then I have a reputable bank of my buyer abroad giving me a trade finance instrument to secure it. So performance risk, we have a multinational, a large corporate that can produce in record time and produce the right quality and quantity in record time. On the other side, we have a reputable bank, A-rated bank, that is given a guarantee to pay as long as I ship on time and present compliant document. Where is your risk? The fact that I've not exported before does not stop me from funding that transaction. Because if you understand it as a financial institution, you can actually ensure this transaction still go through in spite of the fact that I'm new. That's why I said I'm an advocate of people financing new exporters but who are not new in business. New exporters who are not new in business. So, but of course, lack of understanding is a big challenge, and we have a stereotype. Oh, it's new. Oh, it's new in export. Oh, so it's a high risk. Have you checked the transaction dynamics? How did you conclude it's a high risk transaction? On what basis did you conclude it's a high risk transaction? So we need low interest, and Nexim need to lead the way in this regard. Number 2, grant and subsidies. Every country gives grant and subsidy, only that they don't give subsidy to consumption the way we do in Nigeria through the petroleum subsidy the president has stopped, but they give it to production, grant and subsidies, providing support to cushion the effect of infrastructural deficit that have reduced cost of doing business. So for example, export expansion grant, number 1, the process is too much. As in the, sometimes we do something and you wonder, CBN demonstrated something and that was fantastic for me. That look, you can get a grant from government, you don't need to know anybody, you don't need to lobby anybody, you don't need too many documentation. You just need evidence you ship and do your NXP through the bank, and you need evidence the money came back. And on the basis of the amount that came back based on the documentation presented, in 3 months, you get the grant of the government. Without following up on anybody, without documentation, e.g. you provide document, you submit, you follow. We just make it complicated and become discouraging. But CBN in the last administration show that, look, this thing does not have to be complicated, even though I had a number of other issues around corruption and the like. But it doesn't have to be complicated. This thing can be traced. We can know from the money that came into the bank, the record of money received by the bank shows how much this person is eligible to, among other criteria being used. Grant and subsidies is a very viable way to increase volume of non-oil export. Providing grant, that's why they call it export expansion grant. That means the money given to you you must show that the volume you are exporting next year is more than the one this year, is more than the one of last year, because we are paying you for your export of last year. So what you are doing this year must be more, because you're supposed to be expanding and growing. You're supposed to be, and anybody not doing that, they stop it. You stop it. So we have to simplify it. Tax incentive. And I've not seen the detail of the current tax regime being looked at by the National Assembly. But in the old tax regime, you don't pay VAT and you don't pay company income tax, which is commendable. But what I want to talk about is on export credit insurance. Tax incentive is okay. It helps also to boost the fund available for export. But export credit insurance is extremely important. If I'm exporting to Ukraine today, if I'm exporting to Venezuela today, if I'm exporting to South Sudan today, if I'm exporting to Israel today, if I'm exporting to country or Gaza today, to countries that have political or economic risk, or Congo today, what is protecting me? I remember very well during the financial crisis 2009, I was in the bank at the time, and IFC came up with the Global Trade Finance Program because they discovered that Europeans, developed nations, were not comfortable with the letter of credit coming from Africa. And they need to ship to Africa, because if they don't ship to Africa, their factories are going to shut down, just the way I heard some factories have to shut down in Europe because of Dangote refinery in Nigeria. Because if they are not able to ship to Africa, or they have competition, and in this case, they could not ship because of the exchange, because of the financial crisis, and the fact that they don't trust the bank will be able to pay us at when due. You know what IFC did? IFC issued a guarantee letter of credit from Africa. They call it the Global Trade Finance Program. So if you issue an LC from Europe, IFC guarantee LC, sorry, if you want to ship from Europe, IFC guarantee letter of credit issued from Africa, to ensure that at the end of the day, the supplier in Europe is comfortable. Why is it comfortable? It's comfortable shipping to Africa because of the guarantee. It's comfortable shipping to Africa because of the guarantee. That means after shipment and document presented, if the bank in Africa do not pay or is unable to pay, IFC will pay, because IFC guaranteed, more like confirming it, but a guarantee being issued to protect African. We need, now I'm saying that to say that there was a risk in Africa, and the government working with IFC ensure they protect their businesses from that risk. That is what we must do in Nigeria. We must protect. If we don't support SME to grow export, we won't grow export. If the strategy is focused on, because we have this thing of focusing only on the big guys. The big guys are necessary, but they are not doing new investments. So their volume is pretty much stagnated. Maybe a person doing maybe $5 million in a year is in between 4.5 and 5.5 every year, just in between that. They are not doing any investment. But SME have a very large room for expansion and growth. So if we are not supporting SME, which we always call is the engine room for growth, hiring more than 70% of the nation, if we don't support SME, and one of the ways we can support is export credit insurance. Because with an export credit insurance, I can ship to countries that have issues, and I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid that I will not get paid, because my insurance insure my proceed, because the goal of export credit insurance is to insure the proceed. We also need venture capital fund. Government support venture capital to be able to fund export business. Innovative funding for export business. Government supports venture capital to be able to fund. So that means venture capital want to invest in export business, because the expansion I'm talking about for SME, we need venture capital to come in, bring in funding. But these are people who are supported by the government, so that they can take some risk. To be able to fund non-oil exports in Nigeria and in Africa, by the way. We need trade finance products like export credit guarantee from Nexim. Nexim is already doing this to be able to help get funding from the bank. Nexim is already doing this, actually. They have this, just like they had a single-digit interest loan. Export credit guarantee. So if I need a loan from a bank, the only thing is that, like I said, is the requirement. We need to do something about the requirement of Nexim. I shouldn't be given the same thing I would give to a commercial bank. If that's the case, then what's the use? Because the idea is, there's something I noticed about Nigeria. People are stealing in billions, but we can't risk billion on our SMEs. People are stealing in billions and the country did not die, but we can't risk billion on our SME. We just say high risk. Why can't we just stake some billions on SMEs? Stake it on them. Try. Of course, some will fail, but some are going to shoot up from there, and that will be better for the country. Let's take risk on our SME. We can do assessment to know those are serious. Someone that been in the business for 10 years must be a serious person. A business surviving for 10 years in this kind of economy, in this kind of environment, it can't be a joker. It must know something well. There must be something they are doing right. You can set criteria that will make you reduce the chance of failure and deal with serious-minded businesses to be able to move business from small, micro to small, small to medium, and medium to large-scale businesses. So we need a trade finance product like export credit guarantee to be able to support. Now I'm saying this to say that the government need policies that deliberately ensure there is easy access. Lastly is capacity building. Capacity building for SMEs to be able to know how to present a bankable export finance. I had to write a book on this. I call it A to Z of export business financing, and I use acronym A, B, C, D to Z, basically showing businesses the things you must put in place that will make your request for financing attractive to the bank. I will stop here this morning. Thank you very much for joining again and listening to this session, basically talking about how we can grow non-oil exports in Nigeria, in Africa, by growing the funding made available to the sector. See you in the next video, and bye for now.